Welcome to the library tag. As someone who currently works at a library, I might have some insider secrets into libraries as I am going through this tag, particularly when it comes to paying late fees. So I was tagged by Sam over at Sam Harrison. I love getting to see all of the books that he's reading. He is reading through the Wheel of Time right now and The Wandering Inn. And this tag was created by the Book Buds, which have a really awesome channel, and I'm super happy that they created this tag. They also created questions for those who do currently use their library and those who do not currently use their library. So either way, you can do this tag. And with that, let's get into the tag. Question 1 is, how often do you go to the library? And as someone who works at the library, I am there several times a week. So very, very often. Funnily enough, my library has 3 levels, and I feel like I spent more time in the library building, like between the stacks, looking at the books on all 3 levels, where currently I just work on the 2nd floor, and that's where I see the library. And sometimes I go upstairs and I'm like, I haven't been on the 3rd floor in so long, whereas previously, before I worked there, I had been going about once a week, and the 3rd floor is where I spent most of my time because it's where the adult books were. So that's kind of the funny thing about working there, is I spend a whole lot of time there, but I actually don't spend as much time with the books as I did whenever I was just going there and browsing the shelves. Question number 2 is, do you belong to more than one library system? And I have moved a couple times in the past few years, and one of my library cards is still active, and I check ebooks and audiobooks out on Libby from that library, even though I don't live there anymore. I expect it will be expiring soon though, and I might pay for that library system once it does expire, because they have a very robust ebook and audiobook selection online. And my current library has a good ebook and audiobook selection, but it's not nearly as robust. We don't have nearly the funds for that as I guess the previous system did. So currently I do belong to 2 library systems, and I will probably be paying to continue to belong to 2. Question 3 is, what % of books you read come from the library? And there have been years in the past where my answer to this question would be 100%. I read all of my books from the library. The last few years, I'm going to say I read 98% of my books from the library. I have actually started acquiring a little bit more for my personal collection. As you can see here, the Temeraire books. This is a very recent addition to my personal collection. And I have a Libro FM subscription right now, and I will get Audible whenever there's like a free trial for Audible. I'll usually get the free trial and then cancel it. And I've been using NetGalley a lot more lately, and I'm starting to look into Edelweiss. So I'm kind of branching out as far as where I'm getting my books, but I still read the very vast majority of them from the library. And there is sometimes I will see a book and I'll be like, oh, I'm interested in this. Does my library have it? Nope, they don't have it. I'm not going to read that book. And that's kind of a way for me to keep my TBR very small, is if my library doesn't have it, unless I'm really, 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 really interested, I'm probably not going to read it, because that's kind of a way to just keep my TBR from growing more than it already is. Now, as someone who works at the library and does see a very large number of books come through there that I am interested in that the library has, it's also a double-edged sword, because now I have a whole lot of books that I want to read that I know are at my library. Question number 4 is, do you listen to audiobooks or get ebooks from the library, or are you hooked on Audible or Amazon or something else? And I do get the vast majority of the ebooks and audiobooks from the library, but I do, as I said, I have a Libro FM subscription right now. I probably am going to cancel that because I kind of am building up credits that I haven't been using lately. But, you know, I do like having that source, particularly if my library doesn't have an audiobook that I'm interested in. Libro FM is a great source for that. As I said before, I sometimes get ebooks from NetGalley, and I will purchase ebooks. Now, the one problem is whenever I purchase ebooks, they just go on my Kindle and then I don't see them all the time. and then I forget about them. So I'm not always good at reading the ebooks that I purchase, but I do have some ebooks on my Kindle. But I can give you a little bit more information about the ebook and audiobook system. At least here in the United States, there's 3 major ebook and audiobook systems that libraries use. There's Libby, Hoopla, and Cloud Library. I have never used or experienced Cloud Library, so I really don't know how that works. But Hoopla is a service the library can use, and every time you check out something on Hoopla, the library is charged for that checkout. On Libby, the system works very differently, where the library is actually purchasing a license for the ebook or audiobook. The most common license is a license that expires after 26 checkouts or 24 months, whichever comes first. But there are other options for those licenses, and those licenses are often much more expensive than the retail price that you see whenever you're purchasing an ebook or an audiobook. So those books are in Libby, those licenses are available to you until the license expires, and then the library actually has to repurchase that license if they're going to repurchase that book. And sometimes that's why Libby tends to have very new stuff and not stuff that was published several years ago, because things that were published several years ago don't get checked out as often, and then it's not as worth it for them to purchase those licenses. With all of that said, the more you use your Libby app or Hoopla or whatever your library has, the more resources and funding the library will put towards that resource for the public. So definitely keep using your resources that you have available to you. I know my library doesn't use Hoopla because they did find it too expensive for them, but they use Libby and they have a decent Libby collection. Some libraries can't afford that, unfortunately, but it's really nice whenever several libraries can work together, because my library does have partner libraries on Libby that they can all check out the ebooks and audiobooks from different counties around the state, because they've partnered together, and then people can have a broader access to those things. So see what your library has, see if they have partner libraries. You can also see if you can get a card in the next county over. Sometimes you can get those cards without paying for them. It really depends on the funding structure of the libraries. So there you go. There's your fun fact for the day. Question number 5 is, did you go to story time at the library as a kid? And my answer is actually no. I don't remember any library programs when I was very young, and I'm not even sure how much we were going to the library when I was very young. I was probably the biggest library user whenever I was a child, between the ages of like 9 and 12, because I remember going to the library and specifically doing programs directed towards the ages between 9 and 12. And particularly, there was a children's book club. It was called Blast from the Past. So we read historical fiction and then talked about it in this children's book club at the library. And the other program I did was also historical themed. I was really, really into the American Girl books, and my library had an American Girl program where they would pick one of the characters for the month and then come up with crafts or games or food from that era and put together a program for kids between the ages of 9 and 12 to come and enjoy that program and experience maybe a little bit of what life was like at the time. And then they also usually had information where they would talk about more things from that historical period. So I remember doing those programs about monthly. The American Girl program I did probably for like a couple years, and then the Blast from the Past, like children's book club, I did that one only for a few months. I don't remember why we stopped going to that one, because I enjoyed doing that one. As an adult, I've sporadically attended library events, but particularly now that I'm working at the library, I honestly don't actually attend my library events very often, because usually I'm the one helping plan them. So it's a little bit different seeing it from the other side. Question number 6 is, have you ever borrowed a movie or video game from your library? And I don't think I've actually been at a library that rented out video games, although I do know some libraries do rent out video games. I have definitely borrowed movies, and honestly, for a very long time, I did not use any movie or streaming subscription services. I do now, but that's really only been a thing in the last few years that I've started using subscription services at all for movies or series. Previously, I would just go to the library and check out whatever they had there as, you know, my movies or TV series. And there are definitely people who use the library currently who still do that. And there are people that do not check out books and all they use is our movie and series options. And they will come and check out like their limit, because we have a limit of 10 movies or series at a time. And they will check out their limit and then they will come back the very next week and return all of those and check out 10 more. So depending on your library, some libraries have a decent collection of that. Now, some libraries are starting to purchase fewer movies because that service is being used a lot less frequently. And the less frequently a service is used, the less funding they're going to dedicate to that service. So that's just kind of the overall. But even to this day, I will check out things from the library, particularly if the particular streaming service that I have at the time does not have something I want to watch. Question 7 is the spicy question I promised. It is, have you ever gotten fined for returning books late? If so, how do you feel about that? And a lot of libraries have gone to a late fee free system, and the library that I work in is also late fee free. However, I started working at the time local library when I was 14, and they had late fees. And one of the perks of being an employee was I didn't have to pay late fees, which means I didn't always return books on time. Okay, this is a whole other thing. As a library employee to this day, I sometimes struggle to return books on time. And I will have books that I sit at home and I'm like, those need to go back to the library. And I'm at the library several times a week and I don't return the books on time because they just don't get in my bag. And then there's other times where the book will get in my bag and I will take it with me to work and I will have the bag sitting beside me while I'm sitting there right beside the pad where we check in the books. And I still don't return the books on time because I just pick up my bag and take it home without ever checking them in. And I've done that several times. So seriously, if you have a book overdue and you need to talk to a library employee about it, the library employee has probably done the same thing. So don't feel embarrassed about talking to your library employee about there's books that you have that are overdue, because I do it too. I literally take books. I'm returning these books today, and I just take them to the library and carry them back without ever checking them in. And it annoys me too. But we're all human. Like, it's part of being human. So whenever I started working at the library, I started working when I was 14. And one of the employee perks was I didn't have to pay late fees, which meant there was for a period of time where I was not working at any libraries and I was using libraries that still had late fees. And I was always paying late fees because I was really bad at like making sure I had the books back on time. My books were like never more than a week late. Oftentimes they were only a day or two late, but just something just like didn't click with like, I need to get them there on time. And I kind of saw those fines as this is my way of donating to the library. Now, of course, it was sometimes frustrating because once I had a fine on my account, I couldn't use my library card until I went in and paid that fine. But overall, like, I think, you know, using your services and returning them on time and, you know, paying a donation to the library, like, I don't have any problem with paying for that. That said, one of the reasons a lot of libraries are going to a late fee-free model is it actually eliminates barriers to the library. There are people that have books checked out that are from a couple years ago and they realize they never returned it and they're super embarrassed about having this late book. And if they return that book now, they can just start over. And it does kind of decrease the barriers. And surprisingly, there's not really a huge difference as far as people returning their books, because people who use the library a lot, as soon as a book's overdue on their account, they might not be charged a fine, but they still can't use their account anymore until they return that book. So I think it's overall a better system because it's decreasing barriers to the library, and we're still getting our books back. Question 8 is, do you attend special events, groups, or book sales at the library? As I said previously, I sporadically attended special events. My library in particular has an event focused on finances, and they'll usually have someone from the community. It could be someone working in real estate, someone working in banking, depending what the particular class is focused on. They'll have someone come in and talk about their particular field. I attended one about first-time home buying and realized that I am nowhere close to buying a home for the first time, but it was still very informative and I learned a lot from that class. I also absolutely love my library book sales. So the library book sale at my library is put on by the Friends of the Library. They have a space in the basement of the library where they take donated books and they sell them for very cheap. And that is also how I acquire a lot of the books that I own, is from the Friends of the Library book sale, both at this library, at previous places I've lived. I love the library book sales because you get secondhand books. Sometimes they're in great condition, sometimes they're in very poor condition, but they're very cheap either way. So yeah, I love those types of things. I actually attended, so my library has a literary society and they will pick a genre each month. And then people can come and talk about their favorite books in that genre, talk about why they love that genre. And it's a way for like people to come together, get book recommendations. And instead of talking about a specific book like a book club would, they can just talk about a specific genre and why they love it and books that they've loved in that genre. So I attended that, but more often than not lately, I end up working during some of the events and I honestly attend fewer events now that I work there. Question number 9 is, have you ever given or taken a book from a Little Free Library, a book box, or a book swap? So I have given books to a Little Free Library. I've not taken any from a Little Free Library. I haven't really found any that I've been very interested in at Little Free Libraries. They can be very hit or miss. Some of them have like really nice books and some of them you can kind of tell people just like donated all of the books that they weren't interested in, but they might be like very rough condition or whatever. So Little Free Libraries I tend to find are very hit or miss. I don't actually know what it's referring to when it says a book box here, because the only book boxes I know are like the subscription boxes you get in the mail. And then a book swap, I've actually never done a book swap, although they always sound like fun. And we have a bonus for question number 10. Does your librarian know you by name? And the answer is yes, because the librarian is my boss. But even at libraries that I've been at previously, the library staff knew me by name. I do want to clarify here, libraries are very casual about using the word librarian. And even in my library, we have what's called Librarian Recommends, and it will have books that library workers recommend. However, technically, I'm not a librarian. I am a librarian assistant, and the librarian at my library actually has gone to school and has a librarian degree. I do not have a librarian degree. So as I said, we are very casual. We'll use the Librarian Recommends and have books that even I recommend for patrons to, you know, pick up and see if maybe they'd be interested in them as well. So we're very casual about how we use that term, but technically, I'm not the librarian, so if I knew your name, that wouldn't count. You can totally count that. I'm fine with you counting that. But the librarian is often the director or a supervisor or something like that because they actually have a degree in library science. And now to tag some friends, I am tagging Chaz from Bookish Chaz. I am tagging Kristen from Kristen is Fully Booked. I am tagging Sierra and John from And They Were Readers. I am tagging Laura from Fantasy Awash and Uzman from Bards and Books. If you want to do this tag, you are now tagged. If you don't want to do this tag, you can ignore me. You don't have to do this tag. But I had fun doing it and I hope you do too. And I'd love to see your answers. So that is the library tag. Let me know in the comments when you were in the library last, and I hope to see you in another video. Happy reading!